A reading from my novel, Otherplace. Emily gasped, sitting bolt upright in her chair. She was clad in a white blouse, with a red bow tied neatly around her neck and tucked under her collar. Along with this, she wore a plaid skirt and white socks with brown shoes. She was seated at a desk in a dark, empty classroom. The girl grew concerned. "Mr. Snuggles?" The reply came from somewhere close by. "Yes, Miss Vance." "Where are you?" "Look down, my dear." She saw a pin attached to her blouse in the shape of a bunny. "What?" Mr. Snuggles seemed to smile up at her. "You are in school now, Miss Vance. A stuffed animal would be inappropriate." Emily scanned the area. It was a school unlike any she had seen before. The room was dark, yet full of desks. There were no other students. And where was the teacher? Before Mr. Snuggles could respond, the door creaked open, and in stepped a figure. The eyes glowed with the same eerie yellow as the nurse's. And somehow, Emily could make out the shapely female form, dressed in a blouse and skirt with high-heeled shoes. But what stood out most of all was the plastic skin, decaying and wounded in places, contrasting with an outfit that was much too clean. The teacher doll wore glasses and carried both a book and a ruler. It stopped in front of a desk, standing in the shadows. Emily gave a start as the thing began to speak in a sing-song voice. "We have been waiting for you, Miss Vance. I expect punctuality in my class." The girl was confused. "Huh?" All around her, figures began to materialize. They were smaller than the teacher doll, but made of flesh, not plastic. Each was dressed in a school uniform similar to hers, and they were all female. But their eyes were vacant, and she could discern what seemed to be a hollow space in their chests. Emily's eyes grew wide, and she whispered, "Mr. Snuggles, it's the patients." The bunny pin corrected. "Only the girls, and there are more here than you saw. They have become the students, Miss Vance. Now hush, the class is about to start." The teacher doll sang, "No talking in class, Miss Vance." "Oh, sorry, ma'am." The doll's heels clicked on the floor as it approached. It stopped in front of her desk, adjusting its glasses and staring down at her with those yellow eyes. The thing intoned, "Sorry is not sufficient, my dear." The doll brought the wooden ruler into view. "Now hold out your hand." Emily grew fearful. "What?" The teacher glared at her. It warbled, "Your hand, Miss Vance." She glanced down at her bunny pin, and then nervously held out her hand. The doll instructed, "Palm facing up, dear." Emily turned her hand over. The teacher doll struck her palm with the ruler. "Ah!" The girl screeched, feeling a sudden sharp pain where the wooden instrument had hit. Her whole hand ached, and then her arm started to tremble. She could feel the pain spreading throughout her body. She became nauseated. Emily grew dizzy, and her head started to droop. The doll chided her in song. "4 more strokes, my dear. Be sure to keep your hand steady. I wouldn't want to miss." Emily cried out as the ruler struck her again and again. She felt each hit with her whole body. She began to ache all over and felt like she was going to vomit. And then the teacher doll withdrew the ruler, singing, "Be a bit more respectful next time." And then the clicking sounds could be heard, growing softer as the teacher moved back to the front of the class. Faintly, Emily could hear Mr. Snuggles. "Miss Vance? Miss Vance? No, don't say anything. Just focus on my voice." She thought, "That really hurt. Hey, you got me in trouble." The bunny pin corrected. "You brought that upon yourself, my dear. I did warn you that you were in school. Did you really expect there to be a lack of discipline in this class?" Emily stretched her sore limbs. "What class? These girls are just sitting here staring at the teacher. They have no hearts. Not one of them even reacted when she came over here and hit me. And why aren't they attacking like the patients did?" Mr. Snuggles answered, "Obedience, my dear. For the following of instructions, a heart is not required." In her mind, the girl asked, "What do you mean?" His voice grew solemn. "Rules are dead, Miss Vance. They exist only to impose boundaries. Useful, perhaps, for the herding of sheep, but they have no real value beyond that which is on the surface." Her thoughts were filled with confusion. Why have rules at all, then? The bunny seemed to be pointing at the other students. "To keep them at bay, Miss Vance." It's quite a shame, but people often need a leash applied to restrain their terrible impulses. Emily wondered. Her parents had always held standards concerning what behavior was unacceptable. But did she really need to be told? Mr. Snuggles seemed to be nodding. You are a child, Miss Vance. A creature that inherently follows its passions. Without guidance, you would give in to your own impulses, and your self-destruction would be assured, not to mention the grief that your actions would bring to others. Emily frowned. You don't trust me. The bunny looked up at her. Should I? You wallow in self-pity, Miss Vance. You cower in shame. Pride fills your very being, giving you an obnoxious feeling of self-importance. All must grieve for you, and those who do not are reprobate. It would be a miserable world indeed if the value of everything were decided by the whims of a child. The girl sulked. I'm not that bad. Mr. Snuggles noted. You mentioned nothing about being good, my dear. Now please, open your book and study the lesson. Emily grew defensive. You don't know what I've been through. The bunny pin took on a patronizing tone. Yes, of course, Miss Vance. Let us dwell on your misery even as you do. We shall concentrate on it, to the exclusion of everything else. I am so sorry, my dear. Your life has been wretched. The girl scowled down at the bunny pin. I don't want your pity. Mr. Snuggles asked, Would you prefer your own, Miss Vance? Emily suddenly felt ashamed. No, I guess not. The bunny stated, You seem to glory in it. If only the world could comprehend your plight. She gave a sigh. You're right. I do focus on myself a lot. Mr. Snuggles chuckled. You love yourself a great deal, Miss Vance. Emily crossed her arms over her chest. No, I don't. He replied, I'm afraid you do. The bunny smiled back. Yes, my dear, you do. And it's high time you dealt with it. She gave him a mean look. How do I do that? Mr. Snuggles responded, You already know, Miss Vance, but now you must take action. Suddenly, a sing-song voice interrupted. You have not opened to the lesson, Miss Vance. Emily stared fearfully up at the teacher doll. She quickly opened the book lying in front of her. I'm sorry. The doll nodded. I know you are, my dear. Now hold out your hand. Hiding both of her hands under the desk, Emily shook her head. The yellow eyes behind the glasses seemed to flash. The teacher doll sang again. Hold out your hand. Emily instinctively reached for her scalpel, but it was gone. She cowered before the teacher doll. The thing smirked, grabbing her arm and dragging her out of the chair. It turned to address the rest of the class, singing, Study the lesson while we are gone. Then she forced Emily down the aisles of desks and towards the door. The girl struggled fiercely, but soon came to the realization. Without a weapon, she could not fight the larger and stronger teacher doll. Where are we going? Glaring down at her, the thing lilted. To the principal's office, my dear. He will know what to do with you. Emily became unexpectedly terrified at the pronouncement. She clawed at the plastic hand, twisting and writhing in its firm grip. But the teacher doll just smiled down at her. The girl kicked at the thing's legs and stomped on its feet. However, the doll remained unfazed. Emily pleaded within. Mr. Snuggles, what should I do? The bunny spoke evenly. Take courage, Miss Vance. What you must do is hard, but it is worth doing. Again she asked him, What do I do? Mr. Snuggles replied softly, You face the principal, my dear.